This episode is brought to you by STAR, a Frost & Sullivan Executive Mind Exchange event for sales leaders on February 11th through the 13th, 2019 in Lake Tahoe, Nevada. Register for the event at frost.com/Vengreso.
But what we are seeing is the ability to surface LinkedIn information that's publicly available in the right context to save people time and energy. So if you're in CRM and you want to surface information, you shouldn't have to leave CRM to get that information.
Hey y'all, welcome to Selling with Social, the podcast that helps marketers increase marketing qualified leads, sales reps to shatter sales results, and sales leaders to grow as leaders. Each show, we interview sales, marketing, and social media practitioners, leaders, and influencers to help you connect, close more deals, build stronger relationships with clients, and improve your sales productivity. I'm Mario Martinez Jr. You're now listening to Selling with Social. I am here with the great Christine Zmuda, my friend from Microsoft. Christine, welcome to Selling with Social.
Thanks, Mario. It's great to be here.
I'm excited, very excited to have you here. And for those of you that don't know my friend Christine actually is the Senior Director of Emerging Solutions at Microsoft, happens to also be the executive helping to oversee the Microsoft and LinkedIn relationship, and someone who we've grown very close with and got to know, and certainly has been instrumental in really helping to evangelize many things, and which we're going to get into the topic today. But one of them is this LinkedIn relationship as well, so that Microsoft has. But before we get into that topic, Christine, do me a favor, just tell everybody we've got sales folks, we've got sales leaders, we've got marketing leaders and sales enablement individuals, and finally business owners listening in, all focused on trying to grow revenue. So we're going to have some good topics, but tell everybody who you are and a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So Christine Zmuda, I've been with Microsoft for quite some time. I would say the last few years, I've been working on acquisition integration. So a lot of the companies that we acquired to enhance the Dynamics platform I've been a part of. And more recently, obviously, on the LinkedIn acquisition. So have a ton of fun in those areas where you're able to build a business from scratch and, scale and grow the opportunity. So it's been a lot of fun working here.
And you've been born and raised inside of sales as a sales and sales leadership, correct?
That's right. So I think at this point, I've done every role inside of Microsoft except the really hard technical ones. But I've had a lot of variety in my career, and I've done everything from industry leadership to channel development to hardcore sales, and then more recently, this acquisition integration work.
So I'm only waiting on one thing that I don't think that you've done, which you will do.
Uh-huh.
Do you know what that is?
No.
Next stop for Christine Zmuda, CEO of Microsoft. Take over the world.
Really good one right now. I don't want to jinx things, right?
Fair enough. I love it. So I always love asking this question and starting out the podcast with asking my guests to tell us something nobody would know by looking at any of your social profiles about yourself.
Okay. Well, I guess something that's relatively new in my life is I'm an abstract painter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Tell me what that means.
I paint for fun. Big canvases, the bigger the canvas, the better. Acrylic paint, have started as a hobby and it's turned into something more. I've actually exhibited a few places.
Wow.
So a shout out to any of my friends in Brooklyn at the SK Art Space. They gave me my first break and I exhibited there as an artist. And I have another exhibit coming up at the end of this month in DC.
Look at you. And do you have a website for your art?
I do. Thank you for asking. It's artgallerybyz.com.
artgallerybyz.com. We'll make sure we put that into the show notes so people can go back to that and look at that. And I'm very curious now to go see what it is that you're producing. And abstract art, like, okay, so I don't have a very artistic flair at all in my body. Zero, zip, zilch. Truth be told, my children, Malachi, he's just this little creator, and he's so, what's the word? When you got to touch everything. What is that word? My wife uses it all the time.
Tactile.
Yes, tactile. Thank you very much. He's so tactile with everything, including when we see little bugs and we're like, oh, look at this baby praying mantis. He wants to come and see it, and then he smashes it.
Oh boy.
He also has a little killing spree that he does every once in a while, but that's a different conversation. But he's been wanting me to help him draw, help him build, help him do art. The next thing is he wants me to help him build a robot.
Fantastic.
So I need to get the wood out. I need to get the saw. I need the nail. And he told me, oh, it's really easy, Daddy. He's 4, by the way. All you have to do is cut and get a hammer, and we need a screw.
Yeah. I love how children just simplify things. It's great.
Exactly. So I'm looking forward to seeing your art there. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And today we've got an interesting topic that actually has got me really excited. And we're going to spend some time on a number of different things. But one of the first things that we're going to spend some time on is talking about predictive intelligence. And this is something that is near and dear to my heart, because in the world that we live in, with so much data or data points that we have access to, not only as sellers, but our buyers as well, right? It is very difficult to try to weed through so much data. And so predictive intelligence is something that I'm very curious about, and it's one of our first topics. So do us a favor, Christine, what is it, and how, and why should we care about this?
Yeah, no, you raise a great point. And I'm glad you actually even raised the trends or the changes that are happening around us with the data that's produced even without us producing it firsthand, right? You're moving through your life and things are happening in the periphery, and then that data is collected. So we're really moving from an application first world to a data first world. And by that, I mean, application first is the traditional way we think about even a CRM system, where a user would put in data, usually in a web form. It's collected on the back end in a database. Data is produced, you report on it. Well, now there are data sources coming in from all angles. Your everyday life, take an Uber ride. Uber's collecting a ton of information on user preferences, hotspots, traffic, everything. If you go into an Amazon Go experience, that's more of a technology forward experience where no cashiers, you're just grabbing product off the shelf, you're being watched on camera, scanners are recording your sales, and no money is actually changing hands physically, but you're billed, you leave the store. It's incredible. You drive a Tesla, a terabyte of data is created just from that drive. And now, as we think about other systems that surround sellers, you have LinkedIn data, which I'm now very close to, tracking engagements, notifying sellers if timed appropriately and connected that an important decision maker has left. So that could be a compelling event. But bringing all that together is pretty difficult. If you have a forward-thinking technology partner who's able to look at pulling this and synthesizing the data so users can act on it and it becomes insights, that's very powerful. So to net it out, we set the table on what's happening and what you need to think about. And predictive intelligence, a modern view of that, is actually using both structured, unstructured data, bringing it together so that you can actually drive personal and unique experiences for that customer based on their own preferences.
So give me an example of how that might play out. As an example, when I come to a website, am I actually being served up web pages that are dynamic and unique to me based upon the different data points that I've collected about you as a website visitor? Or give me an example of how that might manifest itself.
Yeah, that could be. And a really simple example, if you look at, say, seller engagement, we're going to think about sales professionals because that's your audience. But a simple example would be this customer tends to open their emails between 9 and 12. Mm-hmm. So that might be a good time to reach out to this individual. And it looks like email versus phone is a preferred channel. So that would be a sort of interesting way of using predictive analytics to get to a better outcome. Or organizationally, you might look and say, here's all my relationships that my whole company has. And looking at this customer's organizational structure, we've got health, relationship health that is green, very positive, very engaged with our team. Red, maybe the relationship is trending down. So you can take action on that and see what's really driving that downward trend.
Very interesting. And so is this something that Microsoft is doing today within its own platforms, or something that we should expect maybe LinkedIn being launching in the coming future, or yes to all of the above?
Yes, to all of the above. So we're doing it today, and we're doing more of it in the future with some interesting scenarios that will help sellers sell more productively.
Interesting. And is any insight into what we might see in the future coming from LinkedIn? Because this is super powerful, right? In terms of one of the things that we teach in our training programs is how to read someone's profile, how to identify the common elements that you might be able to engage with, how to look at what they're sharing, what they're commenting on, company insights, right? These are all things. And sometimes, like, for example, LinkedIn Sales Navigator serves up different types of insights about that particular individual. But the missing piece for me is, if I, as a seller, could actually look at, let's just take your LinkedIn profile, Christine, and I can look at what are the hot buttons or things that you're talking about, and how do I match that to the things that are important from a business problem perspective that I solve? Can I match those two together? Like, is that something that we're talking about in terms of the way of the future?
Yeah, I think, we'll have to get a way to make those insights digestible and actionable quickly, because as you can imagine, there's a myriad of interest and there's so much data. But some things that we are doing is we're looking at the buying committee and leveraging the algorithms that LinkedIn has on those relationships and what we have in our CRM systems, and identifying, well, here's someone that you don't have in your CRM system that's pretty likely to be in this buying committee. So surface that individual and then take action and leverage your relationships that your network, your employee network has to make contact and start strengthening all of your linkages into that account and into that sales engagement.
Yeah, I feel like you're talking about a state of nirvana here, right?
Yeah.
Because if I think about it, you referenced the CRM. Well, first off, it's one of the most oppressive tools that that has been invented for salespeople. So help me understand how, think about, you mentioned the CRM system. How does a CRM system really go from being a system that is not oppressive, if you would, that actually is enabling salespeople to add value, bring vision back to the engagement with the buyer or between buyer and seller? So, is that through machine learning, predictive analytics, predictive intelligence? How does that affect me on the day-to-day basis of the seller, and how far away are we from this?
Yeah. We raise a good question, and everyone, even sometimes when you bring up the word CRM, people kind of flinch because they have that bad experience where it's almost like being in a really bad one-sided relationship where you give and you get nothing back, right?
Get nothing back. Yeah, that doesn't work for me.
No, because essentially sellers have been, sort of whipped over the head. Put your pipeline information in there, put your opportunities, and then the reports they get are like, yeah, I already know this. I told it to you already.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, what we're doing, we're changing that completely and making the CRM experience for sellers actually a unique destination place where they can only get information that's going to help them. And frankly, they can't get it anywhere else. So it becomes a place of engagement for our sellers. And, what I mean by that is looking at even how are you spending your time? So between the office linkages and Dynamics CRM and LinkedIn, you can actually share with sellers, well, you're spending a lot of time, say, with this ski company in Vermont, but your addressable market and the hot opportunity and the industries that are growing are over here. You might want to invest instead in this account, and this is why. And then, oh, by the way, here's your path to get there. Here are all the relationships that we own as a company, and essentially gives you a warm introduction to start building those opportunities and actually realizing that potential.
So you mean actually putting science behind selling?
Exactly. And customers win too, because then you're not getting these calls when it's not the right timing for your company or your industry is not interested in that particular solution or service. So it's a win-win for everyone.
Now, the key here with this is, I feel like what you're talking about is definitely the integration between the sales tech stack and the marketing tech stack. Right? Because you got to be able to take the data of what I'm doing out on your website or engagement of your video content, as an example, and then bring that back into the sales tech stack so that as a seller, I have a digestible set of data points that tells me do X, do Y, do whatever it might be, do Z, to be able to engage with this buyer, or to your point, move on because they're still in the fishing mode. They're not ready to talk to you yet. And here's somebody who actually is ready to talk to you. It's like, are you looking at this and saying the evolution of marketing and sales tech stack, we talk about it as two separate tech stacks. Are they really more like marketing type of tech stack now?
Marketing. I think that's a new word. You should trademark that. You're exactly right. They have to work together. And we have worked with LinkedIn so that anyone who's marketing on their platform can instantly pull that information in. But the key, as you're probably aware, is making sure that CRM sync is turned on. Yeah. So you can actually measure the impact of lead to opportunity accelerated to landed revenue.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the piece that a lot of customers, frankly, they kind of drag their feet on doing, or they don't get around to it, or it's business leading and they're afraid to work with IT. So, we really need to bring those folks together at the same table to really optimize their experience.
Yeah. It's amazing to me, though. I mean, I will say this, just talking on the lines of LinkedIn itself, it is single-handedly the most expensive tool in the tech stack for sales tech stack on a per user basis, but single-handedly the most powerful tool that can be leveraged in the tech stack but the problem is, as you said it's siloed. You've got this LinkedIn thing going on over here, and then you've got the CRM thing going on over here. And where you do have CRM sync, and I think now it's available through Salesforce as well as Dynamics, where we're a smaller company, so we use HubSpot as an example. But we don't have that capability. And so now we still have two different systems. And so we were literally just mapping out our tech stack. And I was like, well, we use this for that and this for that. But we don't know if this is actually helping us over here because we can't get them all to talk to each other. But the future should be, and I'm totally going off of what we had talked about here in the pregame show, but one of the things we've always seen from LinkedIn is that they've been a much more closed platform, right? Not open APIs to be able to allow people to be able to build systems and tools. Are we starting to see this shift now with LinkedIn to really open up, or maybe they're still controlling it, but strategically going out to the different sales tech stack providers or opening up their APIs to allow people to be able to build technology on top of the platform?
LinkedIn will always be member first. So thinking about privacy and making sure the member is comfortable with what they've signed up to do. So they will never deviate from that, nor should they. But what we are seeing is the ability to surface LinkedIn information that's publicly available in the right context to save people time and energy. So if you're in CRM and you want to surface information, you shouldn't have to leave CRM to get that information, and vice versa. So they're making it very seamless, like one single pane of glass. And then additionally, I think there's a ton of opportunities for developers and ISVs to embed LinkedIn information in their applications. So we're starting to see more of that. And we have the ability to surface that from a Microsoft perspective in Power Apps. So really, no code type of quick startup apps that are saving organizations money, and they get that sort of rich experience of what's in LinkedIn.
Yeah, fair. We talked about how this machine learning, predictive analytics, predictive intelligence could impact the day-to-day life of a sales professional. But what does that mean actually for sales leadership?
So for sales leadership, I think what's great about this is now they can actually click down and understand not only who has sort of the best results, but how things are happening. And that's what we've been able to help sales leaders uncover is, okay, you're seeing trending of a lot of conversion of opportunities. Let's dig into the engagement data and see why that is. So that helps them surface best practices and then even build some of those best practices into their business process. So if things are working at the 20% stage, maybe there's an in-mail or email that's very eye-catching in the early stages. Why not use that again and again in the right places, but still make it personalized, mass personalization. Mm-hmm. Or if you have a compelling proposal that's really landing well with these customers that look like high growth in this SIC code, why not replicate it and use that and measure success that way? So using point drive engagement and seeing who's actually converting from that next step. So it's been super helpful.
Using point drive as an example, that's one challenge that I've seen in the enterprise is I don't know what is actually creating engagement as a manager, right? So if I've got a team of 10 sellers, I don't have the ability to see whose point drive is doing what in converting and or even creating engagement or click-throughs or profile views. And then also too, I don't know how often, one person is using it over another, but that's a great example of where some of those insights can be served up through the CRM system in the form of a dashboard type of report through Sync as an example, correct?
Exactly right. So we'll have Power BI dashboards that will allow folks to just click down and see who's driving what type of engagement and help that leader make that more actionable and repeatable across their org if it's something they want to see happen again and again.
Okay, so I mean, I'm going to say it here. Everybody knows on my show, I'm pretty, spontaneous here, Christine. Yeah. So either one of two things has got to happen. Either one, you figure out a way to get LinkedIn to work with HubSpot and to make that data available to me, or two, you figure out a way to get me Dynamics so that we can use it within our organization.
All right. Well, I think I'll probably be easier to get to that second one, but I'll try and get you those options.
Okay, all right. Well, you heard it, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to see if Christine can get us into Dynamics here over here at Vengreso. But I appreciate that. And really, for sales leadership, this is where the difference in terms of, I remember, obviously, I haven't been out of the field that particular. I mean, I'm still in the field, right? I'm a selling CEO, and I've got a team. But if you think about as a former VP of sales, when you're sitting down and you're coaching somebody, it was always like, so what's the current situation? And it's the person's viewpoint. Well, where are we at? Well, who are the buying influencers? And so you're asking all these questions, but now there's some science that we can add to this. And through science, we can make better educated coaching direction or coaching advice. Would you agree with that?
Exactly. Yeah, spot on.
And that's really the nirvana state for a sales leader is I'm hearing what I'm hearing and something doesn't make sense. I don't know how many times you've been there or I've been there. I'm like, wait, that doesn't make sense. Are you saying you're saying this, but you can't accomplish this? Like something's missing, right? And what's missing is real data. I want real data.
Yes. Yeah. And we've had some experiments even within Microsoft that like our CFO has used intelligence to identify exactly where we would be at end of quarter versus what folks were reporting using algorithms, using analytics, and guess who was closer?
The CFO.
Right.
Oh, you got to love it. You got to love it. And you got to love it for him too, because, originally the history of CRM is that actually was created so that CEOs could actually better forecast to investors. That's the history and development of CRM. And then it became a tool that required salespeople to actually enter data inside there. No, I mean, not then. It was because of that requirement that salespeople had to enter the data. And then all of a sudden it became, we got to make it this great tool for salespeople. And there's a lot of great tools that are out there like Dynamics and others that are helping us. So let's talk about some of the trends on this topic of predictive intelligence for sales. And how they are manifesting themselves inside of client engagements. Can you touch a little bit on that?
Sure. Well, when we're talking to clients today, they're really interested in getting to the business outcomes quickly. So the conversations are shifting from, I don't want to know so much, well, it's important, the migration costs, the IT costs, the licensing costs, but how quickly can we get to these business outcomes? So software as a service solutions like Sales Navigator are beautiful in those conversations because you can turn them up real quickly. And as I shared with CRM Sync, you can measure everything. So they get super excited about the ability to get to business outcomes faster. And what we're also seeing is the success of relationship selling. And I'm calling it relationship selling because, to your point of it being a science, this is much more measurable than what we've seen. Social selling has a connotation of you throw a lot of posts out there and see what happens. But this is full life cycle measurement of a sales cycle and basically the natural cycle of business, right? So with that trending, we've had customers that come back to us 6 months later, 8 months later and say, wow, this stuff really worked. And we just had an experience which was pretty amazing. We had a professional services organization ask our Microsoft VP to come to address their global sales summit. I was like, well, what do you want them to say? Well, we bought your advice on this Microsoft relationship sales solution. Our company closed the biggest contract in our history. The sales rep is getting a huge commission check, and we'd like your VP to award that individual on stage so that the others recognize that, number one, it works, and number two, that they're incented to join and learn, and so we can continue to experience that growth. So it's fun to be part of that success. And, as I mentioned, the trend that I'm seeing, it's not just about initial upfront costs, but how fast can we get to those business outcomes?
Yeah, for sure. Now, you mentioned something in relation to relationship selling, and then you transition very quickly, which I don't know if the audience caught this, but I did. And you called it the relationship selling, AKA social selling. Of which you and I both agree that I hate the name social selling. I don't know if you said that you hate the name, but but you like to call it relationship selling. And I want to talk a little bit about this concept of leveraging social networks and measuring results, because that is one of the biggest challenges that most organizations are having when leveraging relationship selling or selling with social networks to be able to engage their targeted audience. But before we do that, Christine, I want to take a quick break and let people listen into this message here.
Vengreso is proud to be a partner with Frost & Sullivan on the second annual STAR Executive Mind Exchange Sales Event. Join us at STAR, February 11th through the 13th, 2019 in Lake Tahoe, Nevada, to mix and mingle with forward-thinking sales executives and thought leaders. Vengreso will be leading an interactive session on how to stand out and excel with video to drive more sales. As an event partner, we're excited to extend a $250 savings to all registrants. Simply visit frost.com/Vengreso and use the discount code MARIO at registration. That's www.frost.com/Vengreso, VENGRESO, and use the discount code MARIO.
All right before that message, we started talking about this term, relationship selling, AKA social selling. Do you hate the term social selling as much as I do?
Yeah, I think it doesn't really capture what we're trying to accomplish. And like I said, when I hear social selling, it just gives me the feeling that it's lightweight. It's not a full strategy. what we like to talk about here is relationship selling. And actually our tagline is we turn relationships into revenue. Mm. And we really do that by opening doors that wouldn't have been opened before. From working closely with LinkedIn that you can identify all the misintroductions that a firm could have had if they were using their network properly. For Microsoft, that's a huge reality for us and something that we've jumped into with both feet. Our first-party connections in our company, we have access to 8.3 million people as a result of using all of our employees' first-party connections. And that's been super powerful and actually transformative for us. We've seen the Microsoft sellers who use this solution firsthand. They closed 4 incremental deals versus their peers. So it's a 19% increase in revenue. So we're 100% behind it, live it, breathe it. And as I mentioned, it's something that you can measure and chart the success and forecast even what your customers are going to do based on what their networks look like.
I love that you said you're turning relationships into revenue. And here at Vengreso, as you know, we talk about almost every opportunity I have. We talk about social selling. People will say, would you do a podcast on social selling? I'm like, this term social selling is dead to me. If you're going to call it anything, call it digital selling. Like, it's so much more broader than just social networks. But that having been said, it's all about, for us, creating more conversations with more qualified buyers. And the rest will do the trick, right? And that's unique to Vengreso, particularly because our sales training stops at the word hello. Like, we don't take them through from open to close, right? That's a different sales training company. So it's really about creating conversations for us with more qualified buyers. But to your point, it's making sure that we're focusing in on the right buyers at the right time with the right set of outreach. But what I would say is that measuring the impact of relationship selling, social selling, digital selling, whatever you want to call it, is very difficult. Particularly because most leaders, especially our age, 40 and older, that we've grown up, we've done selling the way we've always done it. We got into the executive level positions the way we've always done selling in terms of a very traditional approach and traditional model. Mm-hmm. And so it's almost like I can't control what it is that you're doing out on this thing called the internet, LinkedIn. Right. I can't control. I don't know who you like too much. You're commenting too much, but it doesn't lead anywhere. Do you have any advice for individuals who are challenged with this measuring impact?
I think first it's understanding what's possible in terms of measurement. So, one of the things that we do pretty regularly is help organizations understand first what their own, and I'll use the word social selling index is, because it's a term that LinkedIn coined. Yep. And it gives these organizations a view of how they compare against industry. And then you also have the ability to look at social selling indexes by individuals. And why that's helpful is you can establish a baseline of where you are. And then using the reporting tools from LinkedIn, you can see, are there increases in certain key categories, which are going to make a difference in our outreach. And at the same time, and I kind of harp on this here, I'm saying, because it's so important. If you have that enabled, you can actually measure how much organic pipeline did each individual create through their LinkedIn connections, what percentage of that pipeline actually closed, and what's your return on investment. And that's really the soup to nuts of, hey, you're starting opportunities, you're building relationships, you're perhaps reaching contacts you wouldn't have otherwise reached, and then using your network where you don't have the first party connections to open doors.
Do you think that is what will help to drive more of this long-term change and adoption of utilizing a social network to help you with the prospecting as well as relationship building? Or are there other things that will drive salespeople? And a great example of this, and let me tee this up with, we're literally working on what we call our digital sales benchmark assessment, where we help an organization and we assess how their sellers are doing. And it oftentimes leads to okay, this is how crappy you guys are doing in terms of leveraging social networks. And therefore we recommend that, yes, you should make the investment into, as an example, LinkedIn Sales Navigator. But one of the things that we see is that sales reps are so apprehensive because they don't see the instant gratification, right? It's not so instant. So how do you drive this long-term change, the adoption of something that requires sales professionals to be engaged with their buyers on this channel?
Yeah. I mean, my recommendation, and because sellers are very competitive, how I advise the sales leaders who are trying to take people down this journey is keep it visible. Use that social selling index as a way to keep it visible and rank your top sellers and share the index and say, hey, this is something that we're all bought into. We're all going to go through this change. We're going to measure and look at how we're doing as a company and as individual performers. And it's just like anything else. Leaders have to be visible. There has to be something that is measurable and trackable. And then from there, what typically happens is you'll have a couple breakout reps who really do start seeing results. And then they become essentially the money ball example for others to follow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Interestingly enough, as it pertains to the example, those success stories, like what I found when I was launching a program, or when I launched a program, when I sat in the seat as the VP of sales, was the success stories. Like you need to build a success story playbook. Yes. Everything from the prospecting phase to the relationship building phase to closing phase, because you could use social networks, in this case LinkedIn specifically, throughout that entire sales process, of course. Absolutely. No doubt. And the success stories is super critical and huge. And it's almost like, it's funny that we forget about this, because if your organization has found a sweet spot somewhere doing something, as a sales leader, generally the thing that you always want to do is you want to amplify that and tell people what to do and how to do it and how to make that work. But for some reason, when it comes to digital prospecting or social prospecting, leaders forget to amplify that and talk about the great things that people are doing. And I think that's just another way to drive long-term adoption for something that has a lot of sales folks thinking, oh, this is not going to work because, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, so often we have that, what have you done for me lately? It's like, okay, that customer's happy, move on. What's next? But yeah, I think surfacing those stories, it's so important, not only for the learning, but also just for the mass adoption you're trying to drive.
Exactly. Let's talk a little bit about my personal philosophy, which I know mirrors yours. And that is that social selling, digital prospecting is not just for salespeople. Mm-hmm. I know you and I are in total agreement on this. So let's talk about this concept of who is it for and why.
You're just trying to get me to talk about some marketing.
Bring it, girl.
Now that you coined that word, right? No, I mean, definitely marketing. It's definitely for marketing to make sure that they're using data, that they're improving their chances of success with better targeted lists, for sure. And then we're also seeing some interesting trends that are not just individuals wanting to sell to traditional business-to-business clients or sell their products and services directly, but we're having individuals that are interested in driving an influencer strategy. So government entities wanting to bring business to their city. I want to know these influencers who are driving this policy in the government, and how do I get as close to them as possible using some of the LinkedIn data. We're also seeing different business models even emerging. So I had a customer conversation the other day, and their business, they do background checks. And so they say that we're constantly telling people who not to hire. We'd love to flip the model and say, who should you hire using data? I think there's a lot of different types. So it's anyone from business development, digital innovation officers. Those are new and emerging titles we're starting to work a lot with. And then, of course, your favorite, beyond the seller, the marketing professional.
Yeah. And I want to take that one step further, if I may.
Mm-hmm.
This is my personal philosophy when it comes to who's responsible for brand amplification, for selling, and honestly, the whole company is.
Mm-hmm.
Every single person in the company, from the CEO down to the janitor.
Right.
That probably was a horrible illustration.
No, it's accurate.
Down. By the way, people who are responsible for maintenance and facilities, without them, we don't have a building. so those of you listening, and I'm not saying down, but you get the idea from the gamut, from the top to the bottom, that everybody has somebody in their network that they can engage with or they can help amplify the brand and content. I've been an evangelist for this particular change within many different organizations, and that is, imagine, Christine, if every person in the company had a quota of one referral to sales per year. Now, I don't care if you're a 10-person company or if you're a 10,000-person company or bigger. Imagine how many more leads you can get if everybody had a quota that you were responsible for driving one referral back into sales, and everybody took that seriously. That could drive an immense amount of opportunity into a sales pipeline and a sales channel. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, mind blown on what the results would look like, because people also feel indebted to people they know to have the conversation. So those are more likely to actually result in qualified business.
Absolutely, because people know that they buy from people they know, like, and trust. And so if Christine says that I should talk to Mario, then okay, I'll talk to Mario, right? And this is where, I mean, things like sales advocacy doesn't become just sales advocacy, it becomes employee advocacy, right? And it truly becomes the definition. And that's just like one component is sharing content and amplifying the brand. But the other piece is man, just imagine the change in an organization. And that's why I just look at it and I say, you know, we as salespeople, and I'm not saying everybody who's listening in is all around selling, but we as salespeople do what most of what is it? I don't know what the percentage is, but 90% of what the rest of the world doesn't want to do. We pay for our car, our mortgage, our benefits, our children, their college. Everything is rested upon a quota that sits on our shoulder, and nobody else wants to take that responsibility. So help a brother out and give us a lead.
Yes. And your boss is always happy when you buy a more expensive car, isn't he? Got to work harder.
Exactly right. So as you think about the executives that are in an organization, and whether you're the CFO or whether you are the CEO or VP of accounting, as an example, how should executives across the company be thinking about how to put their relationships to work for the business?
Well, I mean, it can be just a simple introductory email, right? I think sometimes frontline sellers get a little apprehensive about engaging very senior leaders of the organization because they know there's a tax with that, right? There's going to be an executive backgrounder. They'll be there during my meetings. It's a lot of added stress. But I think that people who are smart about really using relationship selling, it's going to your senior leadership and saying, hey, all I want you to do is open this door with an email. I don't need you at the meeting. I'll be fine. We just want to get the conversation going. I will certainly bring you back in at the right appropriate time. So that's just a real simple example. But I think executives can also offer that. So it's not a 30-page backgrounder type of exercise before they engage with a client.
Christine, I'll take it one step further, and that is, I don't think it's just the salespeople. I think it's the sales leaders. Like, take, for example, someone sees that Satya has, your CEO of Microsoft, right, has a relationship in a marquee account.
Mm-hmm.
There is no sales leader in the organization that would want the sales rep sending it directly to him. They would want to vet it. What are you sending? What are you saying? Well, what exactly do we have? Do we have the account plan done? Do we have all these things done? Now, I understand a little bit of that. Like, okay, I get it. It's Microsoft. Like, you guys are one of the biggest companies in the world. Okay, maybe we drop that down a couple notches. But I think we need to get out of our own way. Satya is a human being, and he has real life problems and challenges, just like I do. He has a family, he has children, right? So it's like he's just like me, and he goes to the bathroom just like me, right? So I think we need to come down off of this idea that we need to have everything perfect. The other piece is sales leaders want to always write that introduction for the referring executive, right? They want to, what are you going to say? Well, what are you going to ask them? Well, what should he write? And I think executives, here's my challenge to executives. Executives want the salespeople to tell them what to say. And as an example, you're head of finance, you're head of this. They're like, well, what would you like me to say? Can you write me the email? Are you kidding me? You don't know what to say to open a door? No. Executives should have, on an annual basis, they should bring in an organization and they should be taught what is the elevator pitch for the company and how to properly introduce. That should be hands down a training that every executive goes through, and they have to make one referral every single year. I threw my pen on the ground. That's it. Case closed.
I don't think it's necessarily the executives don't know the pitch, at least in my experience. It's usually time. Time's a premium. They're running from meeting to meeting, and it's like, okay, just send me what you want me to say. And the good ones will wordsmith it, right? Make it real personalized. But if they're down for one referral, I think that will only help the business's bottom line anyway. So I'd say go for it with your pen down.
I have seen many executives who didn't know what to say, my friend. They're like, so what exactly do you want me to say? Well, what would you like me to do? Well, what's our value proposition? And I'm like, oh, Lord have mercy. Forget it. I'll go do it myself. Right. But anyways, I've seen it many times. And I just think there's a level of comfortability, right? And people want to keep those relationships close. But now with tools like LinkedIn and the ability to be able to, have predictive intelligence and machine learning, we can bring all these things together. And now it can easily serve up, like Satya is connected to, we should be able to leverage that for, et cetera, right? So, all right, we spent some great time talking about predictive intelligence, talking about machine learning, and also about relationship selling, aka social selling or digital prospecting. My gosh, there's too many different acronyms for what it means. And really talking about how to drive adoption and the changing role of the sales leader and salesperson. So, a couple questions for you, and that is, if someone wants to connect with you, what's the best way? Are you on Twitter? Are you LinkedIn? Email?
Yeah, LinkedIn and Twitter for sure. I'm on all the social channels. So C Zmuda. So it's CZMUDA.
Which is that your Twitter handle?
Yeah. And that's also LinkedIn. So very easy.
Your LinkedIn profile. Good. And if they want to connect with you as a result of this podcast, they should say they heard you on Selling with Social. Please, people, send a personalized invitation and let her know that you heard her on Selling with Social. And Christine, I do have one last question for you, my friend, and that is your all-time favorite movie. What is it?
It's hard to pick just one, but I guess when you asked me that question, the first one that came to mind is Rudy. Rudy, yeah. So, when he opens that letter, when he finally gets into college and he's sitting by the bank of the river, I cry every time. I don't know. I just think it's well done, and you just feel for him and you're excited for him, and it's an awesome movie.
I like it. We haven't had Rudy on the show yet, so we'll take Rudy. And all of you guys listening in, I want to thank Christine for joining in, and check the show notes for all the different links and resources that we talked about here today. And Christine, thank you, my friend, for joining me on Selling with Social. All of you listening in right now, stay tuned for this final message. Thanks so much for joining me on that episode of Selling with Social. I hope you found as much value in that episode as I did. Here's what I want you to do next. Please go to www.vengreso.com. That's VENGRESO.com. VENGRESO.com. And make sure that you get access to our content. We've got the latest and greatest in digital sales, sales training, content marketing, and social selling strategies that are going to help you grow your sales pipeline. I look forward to having you on the next show of Selling with Social. Make sure you also go to vengreso.com/podcasts to be able to get access to the latest and greatest Selling with Social episodes, along with any of the other episodes that we've got from Social Business Engines with my friend and partner, Bernie Borges. Thanks again for joining on Selling with Social.
Did you register yet for the STAR event? STAR is a Frost & Sullivan Executive Mind Exchange event for sales leaders taking place February 11th through the 13th, 2019 in Lake Tahoe, Nevada. Make sure you register for the event at frost.com/Vengreso and use the discount code MARIO at registration for a $250 savings.